In the ink-black silence of the night, shadows flicker against ancient stone walls, whispering secrets of a past shrouded in darkness and fear. The air hangs heavy with the weight of history, thick like the smoke from pyres that once rose high, casting flickering light on the faces of those condemned. Beneath the heralded banner of faith, echoes of terror pulse in hidden corners, where the cries of the accused intertwined with chants of salvation, each note a distillation of hope and despair, ambition and suffering. This is where faith blurred into fanaticism, where the noble quest for truth transformed into a chilling embrace of power. The sun rises slowly, illuminating the cobblestone streets of a Europe emerging from the deep shadows of antiquity. Within the walls of resplendent cathedrals, fervor is palpable. Worshippers, enraptured by the promise of salvation, drift between devotion and fear. They carry with them a fragmented understanding of what lies beyond the veil of their sacred texts. Yet outside those hallowed halls, in the alleyways and marketplaces, a different narrative begins to unfold. Scattered conversations drift on the breeze, seeds of doubt taking root, questioning the morality of agents cloaked in divinity. In this burgeoning age of uncertainty, dissenters tread a perilous path. Here, at the confluence of faith and power, an unsettling question begins to take shape. How could the pursuit of divine truth, meant to liberate, morph into an instrument of oppression wielded with chilling efficiency? The stories of those accused swirl in the dusty light of candles burning low, their flames dancing like the flickers of hope that seem to fade too easily. The air grows thick with tension, a palpable sense of foreboding that the very fabric of society will change, as hidden fears and ancient superstitions navigate the political tides. Amidst this turmoil, let us turn our gaze to the heart of a city that could lie anywhere on the vast stage of medieval Europe. A small town perhaps, a market bustling with traders and townsfolk going about their daily lives, unaware of the weight silently gathering around them. Here gossip travels, quick and vicious, a shared hunger for truth somehow fueling the fires of suspicion. The local priest, cloistered in his austere quarters, breathes unease into his confessions. Fear has grown bolder than faith, and the darkness that creeps into the church is a harbinger of the relentless hunt for heretics, the cursed few whose beliefs diverged from the path deemed righteous. As a shiver cascades down your spine, imagine walking through narrow, winding streets, the cobblestones cool beneath your feet. It's easy to conjure vibrant colors, the sound of laughter mingling with the distant echoes of hammers striking anvil as metalworkers toil, creating tools of both trade and might. Yet beneath this lively surface lies a nation wrestling with itself, dissecting the fragile threads of loyalty that bind communities together. In this world, frail relationships teeter on the brink, and friendship itself becomes an act fraught with risk. Vulnerability hovers like a shroud, drawing a fine line between neighbor and accuser as survival becomes an act of complicity and sometimes betrayal. The days pass, each one steeped in a delicate mixture of hope and dread, intensifying a landscape where words once innocent transform into weapons. A singular misstep, an unguarded prayer, an unorthodox belief could draw the eye of the church's omnipresent enforcers. The Inquisition, brimming with an insatiable quest for conformity, channels ancient fears into actions laden with dire consequence. Nightfall brings those shadows to life, the scampering feet of whispered conversations trailing into alleyways and doorways drenched in dim light. In grand halls of power, cloaked figures gather, their discussions a mix of arcane religious doctrine and subtle political maneuverings. Outside, torches swirl like flames conjuring specters of imagination. Once noble intentions war against the temptation of authority, intertwining desire and ambition into a web so intricate that one might gasp in a silent recognition. Were they fighting for the truth or simply for the sake of power? As the tension builds, the whispers of the accused rise above the din, stirring a deeper philosophical query. What happens when established beliefs collide violently with the unpredictability of human nature? With every verdict rendered, the concept of truth becomes distorted, a malleable construct reshaped by the hands of those wielding power. Heretics, once dignified in their quiet dissent, are drowned in a wave of retribution, shackled with the burden of guilt for merely existing in a different hue of faith. Each night's ascent bears witness to yet another grim spectacle, the trials where the innocent stand entwined with the guilty, where desperation paints confessions in blood, twisted and turned until their truths become indistinguishable from lies. When the flames reach toward the heavens, they draw all eyes, leaving the people outside to breed uneasy questions. Is this the cost of righteousness? Is faith worth the sacrificial pyres? Watching these events unfold, one senses the profound irony. What began as a call for unity has unraveled into a fragmented society where every individual is a possible mole in the church's eyes, a thread poised to unravel the very fabric of order. Layers upon layers of complexity emerge, every act, every decision, rooted deeply in the human experience of vulnerability, ambition, and fear. The backdrop against which this human drama unfolds is laced with both a cultural richness and a foreboding eeriness, typical of medieval Europe. The marketplaces come alive with traders hawking their goods, colors vibrant and engaging under the watchful eye of the sky. Rituals dictate daily rhythms, from celebrations of holy days to grim reminders of the watchful gaze of authority. But that vibrant canvas is also stained, shadowed by an unseen threat lurking in the corners of consciousness, whispering to those who dare step out of line. As the sun dips lower on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and violet, we are reminded that this is no simple tale of righteousness versus heresy. It is a complex tapestry of human aspiration, fraught with conflict, a brilliance that has the potential for creation mingling with a darkness capable of unimaginable cruelty. Beneath the hopeful veneer of community lies a tension, an unsettling truth that power has rarely been benign, and the righteous can sometimes wear the darkest of masks. As we draw closer to the heart of the matter, we begin to comprehend the chilling reality of the Inquisition, a system fueled not just by zeal and conviction, but by the very essence of fear and ambition. With every passing moment, the narrative unfolds, only hinting at the profound inquiry at its core. How can the human spirit, in its quest for truth, navigate a labyrinth filled with shadows? And as history beckons us forward, we find ourselves staring into the abyss of a past that still reverberates in the structures of authority and belief of our present. What will we uncover as we step deeper into this dark chapter of history? Beneath the watchful gaze of towering cathedrals and the encroaching shadows, medieval society thrums with a complex pulse. Each heartbeat resonates through cobbled streets and thatched roofs, carrying the hopes and fears of ordinary lives caught in the undertow of profound change. The tension between faith and power, conviction and coercion, begins to weave itself into the very fabric of daily existence. In this age of uncertainty, whispers turn into roars, and with every accusing finger, a community trembles. As we delve deeper into this intricate world, let us consider the landscape that cradles the unfolding narrative. A European tapestry, rich with divergent cultures and yet binding together in shared fealty to a ceaselessly powerful church. The contours of this narrative stretch from the sun-scorched plains of Spain, where the Reconquista casts its long shadow, to the frost-bitten lands of northern Europe, where heresy stirs like a restless winter. Each region breathes out a distinct culture that, while cloaked in the garments of Christian orthodoxy, harbors a myriad of beliefs, local traditions sewn into the common cloth that is faith. In these variances lie the roots of societal tension. The Church, claiming dominion over the spiritual realm, seeks to root out diversions that threaten its authority, battling not merely against perceived sins, but against the embers of a burgeoning individualism. Small communities, whether nestled in remote villages or thriving in bustling urban centers, find themselves at a crossroads. On one side, the alluring promise of loyalty to a divine ideal. On the other, a growing awareness of the injustices and inequalities that grip their lives and their livelihoods. The Church, once a vehicle of solace, now feels like a vice pressing down with an unrelenting grip. Imagine a weary farmer, rising before dawn to toil the land, every furrow he plows accompanied by a prayer, dust clinging to his skin, whispers of providence close to his heart. The morning sun holds the promise of another bountiful harvest, yet there is an unshakable shadow lurking over every shoulder, a reminder that the world outside his field is rife with danger. He knows that among his neighbors may lie those who test the Church's teachings, those whose vibrant colors may appear in stark contrast to the dullness of accepted piety. What happens when a simple misinterpretation of a sermon, or perhaps a stray comment during a hushed conversation, leads to suspicion? In these intimate exchanges, the architecture of power reveals itself, built not only from edicts and decrees, but also from the very dynamics of community. Gossip, akin to wildfire, ignites fear, permeating even the most steadfast friendships. Neighbors become wary, and the bonds that once grew with the soil turn brittle under the pressure of doctrinal vigilance. The farmer, torn between the necessity of loyalty to community and the drive for understanding, finds himself ensnared in a network of hidden tensions, where kindness could easily morph into betrayal. It is in the drawing rooms of noble families, as well, that the undercurrents of ambition begin to collide with the larger religious fabric, where the thirst for power and prestige forces a delicate balance. Imagine the cold marble halls of an influential lord, his mind a whirlpool of ambition detailed in hushed tones that float through opulent banquets. Here, alliances are forged, not just between the faithful, but among those keenly aware of the shifting sands of political favor. The Church is not merely a divine institution, it is an enterprise, one that promises protection in return for unwavering fealty. With each noble birthright that aligns itself with the Church, gifting lands and wealth, the seeds of loyalty become entwined with the branches of control. As alliances grow and shift, and as fear morphs into unyielding resolve, we can see the architecture of authority taking shape. The Inquisition itself, born from this interplay, emerges not just as an instrument of religious enforcement, but as a palpable manifestation of energies that have long simmered beneath the surface. An expression of anger against chaos and uncertainty, it is an embodiment of the need to re-establish a firm grip on societal order, a device that echoes the lingering fear of disorder as the heroines and heroes of faith become the very architects of a systematic hunt. Yet amidst the fierce grip of this institutional power, the everyday lives of people continue to unfold, dripping with nuance. Workshops buzz with craftsmen shaping goods that adorn the lords and peasantry alike. Neighborhoods stir with laughter while secretly carrying a stifled dread. The very act of living, of celebrating life's joys, of sharing love and friendship, transforms into an act of quiet rebellion against the specter of control tightening around them. The sacred and the mundane entwine deeply. Festivals brim with the vibrancy of life's rhythms, adorned in color and energy as music echoes through streets. Yet within the harmony lies a somber undercurrent, a sense of anticipation that mirrors the uncertainties brewing just beyond the horizon. For every celebration, a reminder exists, the ever-watchful eye of the Inquisition, ready to pounce upon the unorthodox, poised to extinguish any flicker of dissent with a swiftness that chills the heart. Through the creeping dusk, the screams of the damned resonate in collective memory, layered upon each wooden pew in every church, foreboding ghosts who walked among the faithful only to be cast away, their struggles echoing through time and urging a reflection on the price of faith that so many unwittingly pay. As we linger in this historical moment, we become attuned to the rumblings of impending change, rippling through the land like waves assailing a tranquil shore. The ascension of the Inquisition marks not merely an institution's rise, but rather a fragile tipping point for societal structures, the moment when fear and fanaticism entwine so tightly that clarity of purpose is lost amid chaos. In the depths of fear, the line between community and control blurs, and the very ideals of faith begin to morph into something more sinister, wielded as weapons rather than shields for the soul. Hear the distant clang of the church bell as it tolls, its sound reverberating through the town, pulling the inhabitants from their reverie into silent reverence, a poignant reminder of the tether connecting mundane life and divine judgment. Each ring welcomes yet another day of uncertainty, instilling a creeping dread, a reminder that whispers might carry as easily as taunts, that trust is as tenuous as flame swaying in an evening breeze. As the lens of history narrows its gaze into this intricate web of influence, exposure, and conflict, we cling to the realization that this narrative is as much about the human condition as it is about power plays or the intricacies of the Inquisition. The intricate dance we observe, the folly of ambition entangled in the quest for piety, reveals the multifaceted experience of humanity, a cautionary tale that resonates through epochs, calling to our present. In a realm drowned by spirituality's promise, society finds itself ensnared in the turmoil of its own making, a poignant paradox where love is eclipsed by fear, and faith no longer becomes a channel for liberation but rather a means of oppression, reflected in the faces of those forced to choose between adherence and survival. What will the future hold as we peel away the layers of tradition, only to confront the stark reality of an unforgiving landscape? The tension holds tight, an immovable weight upon the soul of the individual now more than ever, as the specter of change lingers in the distance, beckoning us closer to an inevitable transformation that looms ever larger. With each turn of fate, we march forward toward a convergence of belief and power, ready to unravel the threads binding human behavior to centuries of consequence. In the heart of this complex web, daily life unwinds in a rhythm deeply embedded in the soil and the traditions of the past. A tapestry woven from laughter and toil stretches across the reflective faces of men and women who awake each day before the first light breaks. Villagers gather in the early mornings, their muted conversations suffused with the scent of freshly baked bread wafting from warm homes, where hearths flicker with life's warmth. Each loaf a communal offering, a testament to the simple acts of loving care that define their existence, yet behind these domestic scenes a sense of apprehension simmers. As we traverse through these punctuated moments, consider a young mother moving deftly through her day, her hands calloused yet tender as she kneads dough for her family. Children play nearby, their laughter mingling with the robust chatter of neighbors who voice either urgent news or essential gossip. Life oscillates between the sacred and the commonplace, the fragility of joy nestled next to the weight of fear. What might they discuss today? Rumors of a denunciation that traveled like a dark cloud, casting shadows over joyous moments. Her heart whispers questions, that nagging worry nested in familial bonds. Is her son's inquisitive nature blessing or a curse? Will they be curtailed by the very curiosity that defines human existence? Within the soft flicker of candlelight in kitchens and the echo of footsteps on worn cobblestones lies a silent communion. Families come together to share suppers rich in legumes, grains, and whatever scant meat is afforded, filling their bellies and minds through prayers of gratitude. Over these communal meals, where food is not merely sustenance but an expression of shared history, a mosaic of tales unfolds. Grandparents spin stories of resilience passed down through generations, a rich oral heritage that binds them together yet remains fraught with tension. An entire world sits on the precipice just beyond the flickering veil of their homes. The church, a towering presence both physical and spiritual, stands as a testament to their faith, statuesque and imposing, its walls whispering prayers and secrets alike. Each spire that stretches upward feels like a finger pointed toward divine judgment, and the townsfolk often tread carefully in its shadow. On Sundays, the congregation floods into the sacred space, voices rising in unison, lace and linen gliding softly against cold stone floors. In this space, fraternity momentarily shields them from the harsher truths outside. Prayers mix with whispered fears, a double-edged sword cloaked in ritual. Yet beneath the surface lurks an uncontrollable tension that influences every crevice of their lives. The social hierarchy, layered like a cake, becomes both an anchor and a prison. Nobility dines extravagantly while peasants barter gruel for labor, hearts heavy beneath the weight of constant judgment. There exists a palpable disdain for those who deviate, who either seek enlightenment or remain glued to their traditions, and the very fabric of social bonds feels brittle when stretched by scrutiny. The village baker, a man whose wares bring smiles to faces of all ages, may very well find his daughter accused of witchcraft or worse if an envious neighbor speaks out. The game played is merciless. Favor depends on fleeting allegiances, and the sharp edge of betrayal is ever close. Space, too, takes on a meaning rich in significance. Architecture rises with purpose. Narrow alleys between towering homes cast shadows long enough to hold secrets. Cobblestones are worn where thousands have traversed, spirits echoing faintly. Houses crafted of timber and straw hum with stories, each post within them imbued with generations of blood, tears, triumphs, and failures. In the twilight, handwritten letters filled with confessions pass silent from hand to hand, or as easily critical letters pennied in haste, isolating the guilty from the faithful, inscribing the dark dynamics between comrades and kin. And then there are the marketplaces, those vibrant patches of community where artisans and merchants hawk their goods under awnings of fabric drenched in color. Fishmongers shout of the bounties from the sea, while weavers exhibit their latest creations, threads as rich and varied as the lives they touch. These spaces crackle with the energy of commerce, yet amidst the hum, one can sense the lingering tension. As a mother negotiates the price of dried herbs, she fears the enactment of suspicion may transform her into a figure of dread. Each exchanged glance weaves a lifeline of understanding, yet also serves as a shackle binding her fate. The seasons, too, mark the passage of time through cycles of planting and harvest, each sowing symbolic of faith imbued with hope. Planting in spring awakens promises as farmlands blush green, the jubilant interplay of life and death, growth and decay. Families gather to reap their rewards or mourn failed crops in a land ruled by whimsy and caprice, where even the sun could switch from a warm embrace to a bitter chill. Each harvest festival bursts alive in spectacular colors, with dances echoing memories forged in joy, yet underlined by an unwritten fear, what stands just beyond joy's horizon. When twilight descends, darkness swathes the streets, transforming familiar paths into twisting mazes of fear and uncertainty. The candlelight flickers precariously, as unwelcome whispers grow louder through creeping silence. In the shadowy corners, all manner of hidden knowledge flourishes, herbal lore, folk traditions, ancient pagan rites entwined deeper than the thoughts of a torturer could ever grasp. In quiet meetings, some families gather, muttering incantations of the old ways, reclaiming vestiges of a past steeped in mystery, but masked by the rigorous purity demanded by the church. Here, at the intersection of tradition and fear, we find the very essence of the human experience, fragile yet resilient. The environment buzzes with stories of secrecy, the old woman who brews potions for the ailing, the young scholar enchanted by forbidden texts, the flames of curiosity illuminating chambers of knowledge long hidden. The tolling of the bell draws the community together, a soft reminder that lessons from history's darkest corners must carry with them pathways of hope woven through the tapestry of the everyday. As they navigate this minefield of fear, the unimaginable wages within, in those soft shadows lies the consequence of power unfettered, where deceit grows roots in the soil of faith. It is this essence of humanity, its duality, its complexities, that shapes the very foundation of an epoch moving uneasily forward toward greater challenges. As looming trial seasons approach, each heart must reconcile its ties to loyalty, love, and fear, for the seams of society stretch ever taut, poised to unravel before the very forces that once sought to bind them. Amidst this backdrop, we feel the echoes of history resolve into a powerful chiaroscuro, life illuminated, yet ever threatened by darkness. With each heartbeat, we are pulled deeper into a reality where the sacred and the profane find enrollment in their struggle, elusive yet palpable, a poignant reminder that humanity, flawed and magnificent, lies forever at the heart of any tale born from the cradle of belief. And as shadows deepen, the machinery of the Inquisition gears ever onward, ready to exude its influence far beyond what the eyes can see, shaping a world both beautiful and terrifying. In this delicate dance, we become witnesses to a fundamental truth of existence, the fragility of our bonds amidst the shifting tides of power and fear, and the enduring quest for understanding over condemnation. As the community exists under a shroud held tight by tradition and fear, the creeping rise of the Inquisition manifests gradually, unleashing a tide of fervor and suspicion that would ripple through the fabric of society. During the latter part of the 15th century, the Catholic Church, once a stabilizing moral compass for the faithful, becomes entangled in the politics of governance and power struggle, transforming virtue into a tool for control and piety into a weapon. The intimate voice of the common people is drowned out by proclamations echoing from the grand halls of power, where influential figures, driven by ambition, wield both Holy Scripture and state power with equal fervor. Among those at the helm is Tomás de Torquemada, the first Grand Inquisitor of Spain, a man whose very name has become synonymous with cruelty and dogged pursuit of heresy. The political climate favors his ascendance, for the Spanish crown, newly united under Ferdinand and Isabella, seeks a uniform identity to unify a nation divided not just by difference in belief, but by centuries of social complexities. It is within this fusion of political ambition and religious zeal that the framework for the Inquisition springs forth, a call to arms cloaked in a shroud of divine righteousness where common dissent is equated with treachery, and where the unyielding pursuit of purity becomes a national obsession. Amid the backdrop of fervent national consolidation, the cracks start to widen. For many, the quest for a singular national identity begins to gnaw at the very core of religious pluralism that had existed for centuries. The echoes of previously coexisting Jewish and Muslim communities resonate through the cobbled streets, yet their very existence becomes a source of tension. This social crucible breeds resentment, misinformation, and fear, rising to a deadly crescendo as historical memories of coexistence morph into narratives of scapegoating and betrayal. Whispers of the heretic begin to emerge from corners unnoticed, creating a societal need to root out perceived deviance. The archival records of the time hint at a deeply psychological transformation. Ordinary citizens, often steeped in their own struggles for survival, begin to view their neighbors not through the lens of camaraderie, but as potential threats lurking in the shadows. Trust erodes like the facade of their lives, willing to sacrifice fellow villagers to appease a system that rewards loyalty to the Inquisition with favor and hope. What began as a network of social bonds frays under the weight of fear, and those who once celebrated the blessings of community now clutch their safety tightly, unwilling to step beyond the imposed borders of suspicion. In the throes of this ideological fervor, the very fabric of the Catholic Church shifts. Once a steadfast arbiter of spirituality, it morphs into an instrument of state control, where the pulpit becomes a platform for political decree. The Inquisition's trials become spectacles, drenched in spectacle yet suffocating under their grim purpose. It is said that the cries of the accused ring hollow against the stone walls, the painful echoes of burnt flesh and the quivering souls of the convicted scourged by witch hunts, and the relentless apparatus of fear wielded by Torquemada and his compatriots. This dark chapter does not solely transform the accused and their families, but also catalyzes the rise of informants and spies, shrouded in the guise of faithful advocates, revealing a societal structure shifting from empathy to betrayal. Friends become enemies, neighbors turn against one another as the paranoia of retribution becomes a fixture of daily life. One wonders, how does a society unravel so deeply when cloaked in the fabric of a shared belief? What happens to those who dissent? The stakes elevate from dogmatic debate to the very existence of individuals as lives are claimed, condemned, or redeemed in the overpowering theater of morality. As the trials ramp up, so too does the spectacle of execution, transforming into a gruesome form of entertainment for the voyeuristic populace. The fires of the stake still echo in the minds of the gathered crowds, a harrowing reminder of the toll of ambition amidst the zealotry of purification. With each chair of judgment squeaking beneath the weight of a beleaguered shoulder, the echoes of conviction become more than echoes. They become storms sweeping through the sinews of communal survival, as loyalty, trust, and even familial bonds sway under the pressure of public allegiance to the church and state combined. Within these unfolding narratives lie the heart-wrenching stories of the afflicted. Individuals who once lived simple lives are swept into the vortex of persecution, thrown into the public eye where their very identities are weaponized against them. We meet an aged scholar, wielding knowledge and wisdom as his only protection, subjected to the torment of those who once sought his insight. His world widens and narrows, knowledge rendered powerless, as suspicion comes not only with chains but also the cold pike of a desperate Inquisition that seeks to eradicate the minds it cannot control. Behind closed doors, fierce debates within the hearts of the populace manifest heated discussions. Whispers of heretical literature overflow from clandestine gatherings, emboldening a resistance nestled in fear yet alive with the flickers of hope, perpetually testing the limits of what can and cannot be uttered. Yet for others, seeking refuge in such intricate discussions bears its own consequences. The relentless machinery of the Inquisition tracks dissent like a predator in the night, and with each stroke of persecution, its influence grows, creeping further across the continent. The Inquisition does not recognize borders. Its tenets seep into the marrow of European society, redefining interactions, reinforcing prejudices, and cultivating an allegiance to power as old norms dissolve beneath the weight of a new reality. The quest for truth becomes nothing more than an oligarchic diagnosis sewn together by propaganda, where even the notion of camaraderie is subject to deep examination by those wielding the litmus test of faith. From France to Italy, the reach of this tribunal expands. Communities once alive with rich philosophical inquiry encounter alarming shifts in their freedom of thought. The burning of books and the persecution of scholars stamp out the light of enlightenment flickering within. The sacred dialogues of Plato and Aristotle, long cherished in academic circles, burn alongside the bodies of those accused of transgressions, their discussions now fading to embers, lost to the torrents of fear unleashed by the agents of a calamity clad in holy robes. This crucible of fear, however endemic, fails to stunt the hunger for knowledge, and amidst the turmoil, parallel pathways thread through the tapestry of history. The seeds of the Renaissance spread, albeit like timid seedlings in a storm, an era ignited not by the flames of persecution but by the very resilience birthed from them. The pursuit of humanity continues against the backdrop of relentless oppression, for all around Europe hidden figures will rise and resist. Rebels clothed in anonymity seek out and disseminate the lost knowledge, proving that beneath the surface of fear and uncertainty stirs an unquenchable thirst for enlightenment. As time churns within the forge of transformation, with the fall of each decade, the socio-political landscape transforms irrevocably. Distant echoes give way to more pronounced defiance, the subsequent waves cresting higher against the once untouchable edifice of power. Reforms brood through murky waters, their outlines blurred but visible against the widely held belief that the state and church are beyond reproach, push forth the relentless cadence of history inexorably onward. The consistent pushback against such authority hints at a broader awakening within the minds of those who refuse to sit idly amid the brutal onslaught of persecution. As the specter of enlightenment courses through Europe, the questioning of human rights and dignity eclipses the oppressive dogma once firmly ensconced by the hand of the Inquisition. Discussions evolve from quiet murmurs in candlelit corners to vigorous debates in public squares, transcending the veil of fear yet marked by individual sacrifice. But the path toward transformation remains steeped in sacrifice, a funeral march disguised as progress, one where blood stains not only hands but also the soil of the very land they tread. Revolts ensue, layered upon layers of dissent rising, champions of truth demanding accountability and transparency amidst a raging storm of autocratic rule. These movements compel some factions of the Church to reconsider their positions or risk losing relevance amid an ever-growing sentiment that proclaims that the divine may inhabit both the sacred and the secular spaces. In this comprehensive tapestry filled with light and shadows, we witness histories layered over each other, as the reverberations of the past shape the contours of the present. Each fiery execution, each betrayal among family and neighbor ripples across time, an enduring legacy born from the interplay of human aspiration, brutal ambition, relentless power structure, and the echoing cries of human experience against the quiet inevitability of change. As we stand at this nexus, we realize we are not merely observers, we are part of an unending narrative, forever tangled in the complexities of fear and faith, suffering and aspiration, a profound inquiry into the heart of what it means to be human in a world in which every act of love or dissent is weighed upon the scale of power. As shadows lengthen, revelations dawn, gently suggesting that the tides have begun to turn. But this journey through the veils of history is far from over, for the majesty and tragedy of the human experience echo silently, awaiting their moment to reshape the narrative yet again. As the shadows of the Inquisition stretch into the very heart of society, we approach a turning point, a culmination of ideals collapsed amidst the insatiable thirst for power, where the relentless fervor of the past encounters an equally passionate tide of awakening. Change does not announce itself with blaring trumpets, but instead emerges as a gentle murmur, reverberating through cities and fields, initiating dialogues long concealed beneath layers of fear. Herein lies the tragedy of hope battling against despair, as the weary souls entangled within these historic struggles confront the imprints of their past. the weight of their choices etched across generations. In the streets of distant cities, lanterns flicker to life in the early twilight, illuminating discussions that linger like morning mist. As regained voices emerge from the chasms left behind by years of silence, individuals begin to recount their experiences, their stories intertwined like threads in a grand tapestry, each one a testament to resilience amidst oppression. The daily life of common citizens who once cowered under the omniscient gaze of inquisitors shifts, as whispers of dissent burgeon into collective acts of defiance. One can almost hear the distant echoes of an ancient question ripple through the air: what does it mean to be free? Families shattered by betrayal strive to piece together their identities, their memories now haunted by the specter of mistrust and loss. The fabric of community, once vibrant and intricate, has worn thin, frayed at the edges from the countless accusations that broke it apart. Yet within this disarray, a seed of solidarity begins to take root, a burgeoning understanding that survival transcends individual fears, demanding compassion amidst shared vulnerability. This transformation unfolds slowly, like the tentative light of dawn creeping across the horizon, cascading across town squares filled with those ready to risk everything for genuine change. As the intellectual currents of the Enlightenment sweep through this layered landscape, thoughts long suppressed emerge in the form of new ideas, philosophies that challenge the very foundations of authority and dogma that had long stifled progress. The writings of thinkers such as John Locke or Voltaire begin to circulate, igniting fervor in hearts and minds longing to challenge the very definitions of faith, allegiance, and governance. The discourse in salons, previously stifled by fear, transforms into impassioned debates that spill into public spaces, reshaping the emotional landscape of society. In hushed tones and fervent expressions, citizens grapple with the implications of autonomy over subservience. But with transformation comes turbulence. The carefully woven order that the Inquisition sought to maintain begins to fracture, confronting an unsettling realization. The architecture of fear is built upon a foundation susceptible to collapse. The Inquisitors, those once revered as protectors of faith, find their grip over society diminishing. The ambiguity of loyalty cracks like faded paint, revealing stark truths hidden beneath previously unquestioned allegiance. As public sentiment shifts, so does the perception of those wielding power. The omnipotent guardians of morality begin to reveal their humanity, layered in both fallibility and vulnerability. Public uprisings surge like a wellspring of collective unrest, forcing those in power to confront the uncomfortable specter of accountability that lingers on the fringes of their grand halls. The once united heartbeat of intolerance begins to falter under the weight of its contradictions, becoming a cacophony of dissent. As citizens band together, they question, how far can humanity triumph over tyranny? Where once they had turned neighbors into informants, they now find strength in layering actions grounded in empathy and understanding. Among the echoes of rebellion, we find the peculiar notion of memory in motion. As the tiles of history shuffle beneath the weight of evolving narratives, they weave together past and present, reshaping collective identity. The memories of the accused, those once vilified as enemies of piety, become redemptive stories, celebrated in the quiet corners of newfound alliances. Their experiences fuel empathy, kindling connections unmarked by suspicion. What once were moments of grief now emerge as bulwarks against tyranny, a rallying cry for those ready to reclaim agency over their lives. The corridors of power tremble as allegations of corruption grow undeniable. The Church's willingness to wield fear as a tool of manipulation begins to crumble under the pressure of scrutiny. A growing chasm between the populace and the assumed moral authority of the Inquisition manifests, marking a decisive shift that further destabilizes its structure. Within the hearts of the oppressed sprouts a quiet but unwavering resilience. The challenges faced become badges of honor rather than instruments of shame, a collective memory that binds together communities poised for revolution. As decades pass, the landscapes of power shift significantly. A mosaic of reformers emerges from the shadows of previous generations, amplifying the calls for change that echo into the very fabric of society. Spirited philosophical inquiry begins to thrive beyond its concealed corners, emboldened by the tumultuous reactions against authority. Scholars and activists unite against the systemic decay of the institutions that had once oppressed them, a harmonious chorus rising in unison, demanding accountability, justice, and the restoration of human dignity. Yet the journey towards liberation is neither linear nor without sacrifice. The pendulum of history swings, often cruelly, revealing that while some pursue enlightenment, others cling desperately to past certainties, their identities entwined with the chains of power. This inevitable collision of ideals shapes the landscape in unpredictable ways. Hope rises only to clash with entrenched resistance, and in these moments the emotional atmosphere mirrors the turbulence of earlier conflicts, reshaping expectations of what and who might endure. All around the landscape, the spectre of old belief still looms large, yet it exists alongside the newly emboldened spirit of inquiry. Solitary voices gradually coalesce into communities as individuals begin to view each other not with trepidation but with solidarity. Within these dialogues emerges a renewed appreciation for the complexity of existence. The intertwining of fear and love resounds through gatherings filled with narrative exchange, illuminated not merely by the flickering light of flames, but by the warmth of shared humanity seeking to find its way once more. Yet, as we acknowledge this moment of inflection, we must remain acutely aware of the fragility of transformation itself. What has emerged is rooted in a legacy punctuated by trauma, and the scars of history do not fade quickly. The grand machinations of power resisted dispersal, groping desperately in the dark for footholds even as the age of enlightenment burgeons. The reconciliation of scars inflicted upon communities grappling with lost identities may take generations. Thus, the path is winding, painted with both struggles and triumphs as societies convene to carve out a new chapter filled with ambiguity yet underscored by resilience. The shadows of the Inquisition linger, and still the winds of history blow gently, weaving destinies unimagined, echoing with reminders of both human fragility and fortitude. Though systems dissolve and identities shift, the question of power remains inscribed within these narratives. Will humanity learn from the haunting depths of its past, or remain ensnared within the same cycles? As the sun sets on this chapter, illuminating the way forward, we are left contemplating how the shadows of yesteryears may yet hold the keys to brighter tomorrows, even as the pages of history continue to be written with the weighty ink of human experience, forever intertwining fear with hope, ambition with reflection, power with the undying spirit of resilience. The world that once seemed permanent is quietly becoming something else, a canvas painted with shades of change, ever beckoning the exploration of what we may yet become, collectively, as souls navigating the immense and often contradictory tapestry of existence. As the final threads of the Inquisition fade into the tapestry of history, we are brought to an unsettling realization. Out of brutality and terror rises the quiet resilience of human dignity, a testament to the enduring power of memory and the legacy of shared experiences. The spectre of the Inquisition has not entirely dissipated. It reverberates in the collective consciousness, casting long shadows that shape our contemporary world. Across centuries, the architecture of fear built on intolerance and suspicion gives way to the delicate structures of empathy and understanding, whispering to us through time as the echoes of past conflicts resonate in the spaces we inhabit today. The towns, once resonant with the fervor of accusations and the chilling march of the unauthorized trials, now stand in silence. Cobblestone streets soak up the whispers of lives lived in quiet rebellion and subversion, while ruins of once mighty institutions crumble at the edges, standing as mere fragments of a time gone by. In the distance, cathedrals adorned with the symbols of faith show their wear, each weathered stone a testament to the complex interplay of devotion and despair, of belief and betrayal. They become monuments to the past, remnants of power that once dictated the rhythm of every heartbeat in their shadow. As time softens the stark edges of memory, it invites us to reflect upon what remains. Families fractured by betrayal sought reunion in the shared stories of the old and the new, finding solace in the retelling of narratives that, though steeped in sadness, ignited a steadfast determination to seek redemption. From the charred remains of burned manuscripts, ideas began to take flight like the dappled wings of curious birds, aspiring toward truth, a truth that was nuanced, caught in the thorns of debate and discussion, threading through salons alive with animated voices. Amidst this lighting of discourse, the ability to confront and reshape inherited ideas became a beacon of hope, illuminating dialogues that were once stifled beneath the boot of oppression. The rise of humanism echoed in the loftiest corridors of intellectual pursuit, where the raised hands of both the learned and the simple reached toward the skies, challenging the very definitions of authority that had long held sway over their lives. Yet in this embrace of thought, remembrance anchors deeply within the fabric of society, asking, how do we remember the past, and at what cost? In this quiet recession of fear, the notion of legacy emerges not merely as a chain that binds, but as an ever-evolving tapestry of connection, threading compassion through the very substance of lasting change. The stories of those displaced from their homes, the exiled who bore their traumas with grace and resilience, transition from shameful footnotes into powerful narratives of survival, blueprints for understanding the intricate nuances of human compassion. It is within these textures that new traditions are forged, the frayed edges of community stitching together groups bound not by origin but by shared humanity. The landscapes we traverse continue to be transformed, evolving not just through time but through memory itself, breathing anew the stories etched into the soil beneath our feet. stories of those who stood against the tide of doubt and alienation, who dared to embrace their individuality amid collective fear. In the countryside where towers once loomed, a festering silence now rests, infused with the laughter of children who know not the burdens of history but are nourished by its lessons. Here, amidst waning sunlight, we see the intertwined lives that confront the fragments of their inheritance with strength and harmony, whispering to one another, "We are more than our past." But as this awakening unfolds, we cannot ignore the looming whispers of caution, for the fragments we carry are as fragile as the shards of glass hidden beneath our feet. The lessons born from history remain etched in our very souls, encapsulating the playful yet menacing dance of power, ambition, morality, and our eternal quest for meaning. With each new generation, the stories of the Inquisition are reinterpreted, not only as harrowing accounts of cruelty and despair, but as testaments to how far humanity has strayed from embracing unity over division. The shadows poignantly remind us that understanding must come hand in hand with compassion, a legacy far too often obscured by pride. In the quiet corners of the future, will our vigilance wane? Or will we cultivate compassion amid our shared fragility, allowing love to flourish in landscapes forever changed by the moral inquiries of the past? We stand at a crossroads, the path behind us illuminated by the faint glow of history, its contours lined with untold memories and unclaimed stories. We must not turn away from those shadows but rather invite their witness, recognizing that the echoes of both the Inquisition and conscience carve an indelible mark upon the human spirit. There in the shared spaces of remembrance, amidst the breathing ruins and trembling foliage, bravery finds its home, feeding on the courage of those who dared challenge ignorance and sought to illuminate the hidden paths toward understanding. If history teaches us anything, let it be this: no story can fully erase another. Each life, each experience intertwined, endures within the continuum of the human narrative, creating resilience through the weight of their shared existence, asking silently of us if we will learn, adapt, and build anew. As dusk descends gently upon the parchment of time, we find ourselves lingering in reflection on the past, shaping the contours of our future. History is not so neatly categorized by the absolutes of condemnation or reverence, but rather it ebbs and flows like the tide, leaving in its wake a rich sediment of richness and complexity. In light of all this, the legacy of the Inquisition, tempered by time, embodies both caution and a clarion call for introspection, a whisper that beckons us to explore the delicate nature of power, the omnipresent struggle for human dignity, and the unwavering impulse towards justice. And so, as we affirm the persistent narrative of humanity, interwoven with its tragedies and triumphs, its fears and aspirations, we continue to find that there lies within the haunting spectre of history a profound understanding of ourselves, a mirror reflecting the truth of who we are and who we endeavor to become. Each step taken, a deliberate act to shape the world anew, leaving whispers of past conflicts to brush gently against the unfurling canvas of tomorrow. We close this chapter, but within it remains a pulse, a reminder that the human story is never truly concluded, for the echoes of voices once silent still reverberate, gently asking us to remember, reflect, and rise anew from the shadows. As the sun dips below the horizon, we linger here held in the embrace of memory, our hearts gently attuned to the lesson that though the past may fade, its essence persists, quietly guiding us through the endless cycles of human existence.